Hello and welcome to UIInsight discussion on drop-down list boxes. In this case, why they're so small. This is a screenshot from Microsoft Word a couple of generations ago. So in this screenshot, we have opened the options dialog box and we're looking at the File Save As drop-down list box. That's expanded right here. The question is, why is that drop-down list box limited to 6 rows? That's all you can see at a time. Let's take a look at how much of the screen real estate is being allocated to that drop-down list box. So in this screenshot, it is 1024 by 768. That's almost 800,000 pixels. The drop-down list box area is only 2.6% of the entire screen. The point is, when the users drop down that list box, all they're doing is that task. They are trying to make a selection from a tall list. You can see this thing scrolls many pages. So why on earth are we limiting that view to such a small area? So the design principle that I'd like to reinforce today is spend the pixels where the user is working. So let's take a look at what we could do with this drop-down list box. First of all, why not just make it really tall? Now there's no scroll bar. Now at a glance, the user sees all the options possible. So I would say at a minimum, make your drop-down list boxes as tall as possible. Let the user see as many options as possible without scrolling. Now, that's a good idea, and I think that's an improvement, but let's take that a step further. So what I've done here is grouped those selections by logical types. For instance, you can see this second set here is all related to text files, or down here, these are all Mac versions, and so forth. These are all WordPerfect. And that's certainly helpful, because if the user can see that this whole group of options is dedicated to a type of file extension that they don't want, then they get to ignore that whole block. So it simplifies the selection for them. But let's take this a step further. Let me scroll back up here. Something I don't like about this format is it's got the extension title followed by parentheses and the extension name, the .txt, for instance. Well, that means that the extension, the 3-letter extension file, is very hard to see in that whole list. If you're scanning that list, your eyes having to track back and forth looking for the end of each line to read it. So I think that's a distraction. So in this use case, in this task that the user's doing, they might be looking for .txt or they might be looking for MS-DOS text. We need to facilitate both possible choices. Regardless of which the user is looking for, we need to help them find it. So that's what this version of this design does. Puts the format on the left, the description on the right. The problem with this, in my opinion, is for the short descriptions, you got the file extension way over on the right. A little bit hard to draw across those, so let's modify that. This version, I think, is pretty close. In fact, I think that might be it. The list of file extensions is easily scannable. It's in a column, but it's also co-located, if you will, with the name associated with that extension. So again, back to what I was saying, if the user's looking for, let's say they're looking for DOC, which is down here, when they see this block, it's all TXT or text related, they know they can just skip that whole section. They can skip that whole section of that list and keep going. And again, I think we might have improved that. Here's a zoom in on that. And I'm not saying this is the ultimate design, but it's certainly a step in the right direction where the drop-down list box has been expanded to be 2 columns. We've positioned them to be easily scannable for both types of information, the file extension or the extension name. And so group them, and we're 2 columns. So again, if you're looking for text, you see that they're all grouped together right here, and you can choose from those. If you're looking for something for works, whatever, you can see all of those selected in one place. So my recommendation to you is don't use not always, depends on the situation of course, but don't necessarily just use the standard drop-down list box. Consider the use case, consider what the user is doing in that particular task, and see if an improvement to the drop-down list box can help your users. Thank you for visiting UIInsight.